I was recently coaching a chief people officer and a founder of a large company. When they came in, the biggest question that they had on their mind was that I don't have enough time and I have too much to do. They were busy and they were doing a lot, but the sense was that nothing was getting done. Have you ever felt that? Like, I have worked a long time, and I can certainly relate to that, to being very busy, being very occupied with doing with the task, but not actually accomplishing anything at the end of the day. You are kind of lost. You don't know what to change or what to do. In fact, you're doing a lot, but you're not getting anything big accomplished. I want to share this because this was very transformative, what happened for this leader just within a period of a few months. Right? And I asked this person, what is the specific result that you want to produce in the next month? And that looks impossible right now. It was a very simple question, but it was very difficult for that person to answer this question. What specific result would you like to produce in the next month, but which looks impossible right now? And this person said that my main responsibility right now is to increase trust in the organization. And remember, my question was, what specific result? Now, increasing trust, even though maybe every chief people officer has that accountability, but it's still very vague. It's not specific. It's not measurable. And you can't optimize for time if you can't measure progress, right? And remember, the key challenge this person came in with to me was about time. I don't have time. I have too much to do, but not enough time. And that I am always being busy, but not accomplishing anything. And what they wanted to accomplish was to increase trust inside the entire organization. So they want to increase the level of trust inside the organization, but at the same time, they had no way to measure it. And trust is an intangible. Trust is not something which you can measure like margins or profits or revenues. Yes, it is true that trust is an intangible, but at the same time, increasing trust or any other vague outcome like this will become a never-ending task, right? Increasing trust is a never-ending task. If you want to look from a perspective of time, and especially when we talk about quarters, years, or months, we have to find a way to make it tangible. Otherwise, there will always be too much to do and not enough time to do it, because increasing trust is a never-ending task, even if the whole world works on it. Any intangible element, increasing trust, increasing the quality, increasing our output, anything which unless we make it specific and measurable, is a never-ending task. Even if the whole world, even if your whole company starts to work on it, you have to find a way to make it tangible, to make it measurable, to make it observable, so that you can measure progress over a period of time and you can prioritize what to do and when. I want to emphasize that you cannot optimize for time. You cannot optimize for time if you do not know how to measure progress over time. And what we did next was we came up with a set of metrics. We came up with a way to make this intangible of increasing trust into something which can be measured and observed. So we created some surveys. We looked at some of the data this company was already collecting from people, some feedback, and we connected it back to trust. And then we made it tangible that on this particular feedback item, where we are getting 3 out of 5 on how many people trust their top level leadership team, they want to increase this 3 out of 5 to 5 out of 5. But now in the next 1 month or in the next 1 quarter, they want to increase it from 3 to 4, right? And once you do so, now you have something which you can measure. Now you have something which you can plan for. Now you have something which you can observe and actually prioritize time according to that in your calendar, rather than always having too much to do, because increasing trust will never finish, right? This job will never finish. Increasing trust will never end, and it should never end, right? There's nothing wrong with it being an intangible. It is the way it should be. But at the same time, when it comes to time, which is a tangible element, right, which has to be broken down into days, weeks, quarters, and years, you have to find a way to measure it. You have to find assessments. You have to find a way to get data and other indirect metrics, which can tie back to whatever that intangible outcome of result might be. And once again, the aim why we break down any intangible outcome into tangible metrics or numbers or data collection points is not to get accurate, right? It's not to say that if we help this feedback number go from 3 to 4, then we have solved the problem of trust, right? Or then we have fixed increasing trust. As we said, right, many of these intangibles are never-ending tasks, even if the whole world works on it. But the aim to create numbers is not to get accurate. The aim is to get started. The aim is to get started in the right direction. And the aim is to measure progress over a period of time so that we can look back and see how far we have come. We can look back and see what has been working, what has not been working, so that we can adapt in the future, right? The aim is not to fix increasing trust as a problem, because it will always remain. The aim is not to get accurate in like we want to fix this thing forever. The aim is to get started The aim is to look back and see how far we have come. And the aim is to move forward in a more meaningful, in a more measurable, in a more structured way. What we also discussed and found out in my conversation with this chief people officer was that their time, their energy, and their attention were scattered all over the place. Anytime I would ask them one question, they would go in at least 5 or 6 different directions. And I'm doing this, there is this initiative in progress, there is this problem which is happening with this team, there is this problem with this team. So at any time, this person's mind was occupied with at least 5 to 10, if not more, items, right? So their time, their energy, and their attention was not focused at all. It was totally distracted. And if you are a leader, founder, entrepreneur in any capacity, your most important resources are your energy, your attention, and your time. I would even say that your attention comes first, because at any given single moment of time, that is the only resource you have. You can focus your attention at any given point on only one thing. And if your attention is scattered, you lose energy. It's exhausting to have too many things to focus on. If your attention is on one thing at a time, and you can continue to divert that attention when you choose to, but it doesn't take away from your energy. But if you lose that control, if your attention is scattered and distracted, you lose energy and you lose time. There is never enough time. It's never a question about time. How do I find more time is never a question about time. It is about optimizing your attention so that you can optimize your energy, so that you can make the best use of the time you have. Asking yourself, how do I find more time or how do I get more done, is not even the right question. It is an invitation for asking an even better question. Why is my attention distracted and divided in the first place? How can I focus my attention, and how can I come from a place so that my energy is optimized, my energy and my time are well optimized? Your attention, your energy, and your time are your most important resources as a leader. And what we did next was we broke down increasing trust into the 3 most important metrics which must move from here to there. If this person can actually move these 3 metrics from here to there in the larger interest of increasing trust, in their own words, that would make this quarter a breakthrough quarter. Now, I asked this person, how much time are you actually spending on these 3 priorities right now? And their answer was 20%, maybe less than 20% of the time they were spending on these 3 items, because the rest of the time was distracted, was divided in everything else outside of these 3, which I'm not saying is not important, but maybe is not important in that shorter term time frame of 3 months, of a quarter, right? Because if you say everything is important, what you're telling me is that nothing is important. That's a hard truth sometimes that you have to face. And many times I have to face the same thing, because I always see that my calendar gets filled up, my priorities get filled up, and then I have to reduce, I have to eliminate everything and identify the top 3 and focus my time, my energy, and my attention on these top 3. So once again, I want to repeat this because this is so important. If everything is important, then nothing is important, right? And the challenge that I gave to this person, that now that you have identified these top 3 priorities, make sure 80%, not 20, 80% of your time goes into these top 3 priorities. Nothing takes away your time, attention, and energy from focusing on these top 3 priorities. And you can keep 20% of your time reserved as a buffer for all the distractions. But no distraction, no demand on your time enroaches your 80% block, which is absolutely critical. And unless you can do so, unless you can block 80% of your time to create a breakthrough quarter for yourself in the next 3 months, we are working backwards, not forwards. If you allow 80% of your time to be distracted, the only outcome that you have, the only natural outcome is stress. The only natural outcome is disappointment. The only natural outcome is frustration. The only natural outcome is conflict or disagreements or unnecessary friction in relationships and overwhelm. Right? Now, when I propose this, right, to focus 80% of your time on these top 3 priorities, it's an act of simplifying, right? And I often say that before you have to multiply, you have to simplify. And unless you can simplify, you cannot multiply. And as a leader, it's just so easy to get caught up in complexities, get caught up in complications, that we forget that unless we can simplify, that our main role as a leader is to simplify so that we and then our teams, right? This CPO, this chief people officer, had more than 100 people reporting to them. So there is a huge amount of multiplication that is possible. But unless they can simplify, people cannot multiply any outcome, whatever that is, right? So once they simplify these 3 top priorities, measured in these numbers, these data collection points, over the next quarter, 80% of time blocked for that. Now the 20% of your time is free for any distraction that you want to do. Now a big challenge which comes up, what do I do with all the demands of my time, right? What do I do with my current calendar, the way it looks like? And we came up with 3 things to do, or 3 skills to build to be able to make sure that your 80% is completely blocked. So the 3 things which you need to build or get better at are either deleting, delaying, or delegating things which are on your calendar right now, so that 80% of your time is absolutely and totally focused on your top 3 priorities for the quarter. Let me go over them one by one again, right? Deleting, which basically means saying no, that I will not do this, I will not attend this meeting, that this is not important because the top 3 priorities doesn't call for this. The second is delaying, right? Identifying that maybe there might be another task, maybe there might be another metric which is important, but not for now, right? You have identified something for the first quarter, you've identified something for the first month. Now, if you have something which will only be important in the next quarter or the next month, then that shouldn't be sitting in your calendar right now. So after deleting, delaying, right? Saying not now is also a very important skill for a leader, to make sure that 80% of their calendar is only blocked for what are the top 3 priorities, which means they have to delete, they have to say no to a lot of the items, and they have to say not now or delay many things. And apart from them, for any leader, it's a very important skill to delegate, which means that this is important, but not me. There's somebody else on my team who can do this, or maybe who can even do this better than me, right? Which is simply making a request to somebody, can you take care of this? Because this is important and I have to focus my time, I have to preserve my time to fulfill this outcome, this responsibility, this result that I'm taking on. So these 3 skills, deleting, which is saying no, delaying, which is saying not now, and delegating, which is saying not me, is what you have to build or get better at if you have to make sure that 80% of your time is blocked for your top 3 priorities in any given time unit. I want to separate meaningful action from meaningless activity. Anything which you do now, after you have broken down and identified your top 3 priorities, anything which you do outside of this is a meaningless activity, even if it becomes a meaningful action in the future. And anything which you do, which is part of those 3 priorities, which is part of the 80% of the time, is a meaningful action. Even if that involves taking a nap in the afternoon, even if that involves stopping and taking a breath, even if that involves doing nothing, even if that involves sitting in silence. Even sitting in silence and taking rest can become a meaningful action if that is a part of the top 3 priorities and the 80% of the time that you have reserved for them. Anything else, even if that is very important, even if that is a meeting with a CEO or that is a meeting with an investor, if that is not a part of your top 3 priorities, that is a meaningless activity. Normally, we call anything which we do as meaningful action and anything which we don't do as a waste of time. But I want to reframe this for you, that once you identify what is the most important for you in any given time unit, a week, a month, a quarter, a year, and so on, and you reserve 80% of your time for that, anything which enriches that 80% of time, no matter how important it might look, it's a waste of time. In this frame, talking to your CEO can be a waste of time. Creating a report can be a waste of time. Answering an email can be a waste of time. And anything you do in that 80% of your time for those 3 priorities, for let's say increasing trust, but identified by these 3 priorities that you identified, anything that you do is meaningful action, even if that involves slowing down, taking rest, listening. And I want to really break this habit of thinking that hard work or being busy or doing more is valuable in some way in and of itself. Anything which you do is not valuable if it is taking you away from the 80% time block that you have created for your top 3 priorities. If you are not able to do your top 3 priorities, then you are failing, right? Then you are failing in your job as a leader, irrespective of anything else that you think is important. And once again, this brings us to the point, if everything is important, then nothing is important for you. And it's a skill to be able to say that in this time period, I will focus on these 3 things, right? Because you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. What you want to do as a leader, your ambitions, your desires are always infinite. So you will always have more to do. You will always have things to fix. You will always have hundreds of items on your list if you want to create a list. But now when we're talking about time, you have to break it down on a daily, weekly, monthly level. And then, yes, you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. And especially for leaders, I don't think that list should ever be longer than 3. That's the ultimate simplification that will allow you to multiply what you and your team can achieve over a period of time. And I wanted to share what results this CPO particularly produced. After a few months of practicing this, they were able to double their measured output in half the time spent. So they realized that they didn't actually need 80% of their time, But by blocking 80% of their time, they were actually able to double the outcome that they were hoping for that they will do in a month. Just because their time, energy, and attention were not scattered, were not divided, and they were fully focused on these top 3 priorities, at least for 80% of their time across any given week, any given month, any given day. Double the output in half the time spent. Would you like that? I think any leader would like that. And that is possible. And that's often get lost because doing more in itself is never valuable. What is valuable is moving a needle towards the results. So less is more. And simplification is the ultimate sophistication. Unless you can simplify as a leader, you cannot multiply. And if you were able to do so like this leader was, they said that they had no stress. In fact, the only stress or difficulties they had in those 3 choices of deleting, saying no, of delegating, saying not me, and delaying, saying not now. That was the most difficult part. But the 80% of the time became very stress-free, became very relaxed, and they felt freedom. The quality of their work improved, right? Their health improved, their well-being improved. Everything improved because they were able to start from identifying the top 3 and then making sure 80% of their time is dedicated to what are the most important 3 things, right? To close this up, I want to add that anytime you're leading, especially as a leader, you're not only leading yourself, you're also leading by example. So you have to be very careful. What is the leadership message that you're communicating? What are you teaching the people below you? How are you teaching them to follow you by your example? Your words matter less, your examples matter more. So once again, lead carefully, choose carefully. And until the next time, keep choosing leadership, keep deploying yourself.